spiritual leader again. His name, this person by Rashid. So we can see it as certain influence. You cannot imagine that even Muhammad Abdu influenced the Muslims in Indonesia, influenced the Muslims in different parts of the world. So these scholars, Jamaluddin Afghani, Muhammad Abdu, and then Rashid Rida has a great influence on almost all the Islamic movements in the Muslim world. Now we come to a very large Islamic group by the name of Ikhwan Muslimin, or Muslim Brotherhood, which is very famous in Egypt and it has members almost all over the Muslim world. It was established by a certain scholar by the name of Hassan al-Banna. Hassan al-Banna was born in 1906 and passed away in 1949. So Hassan al-Banna was born in Egypt, and when he was young he was taught by his father, who was a religious scholar. He was graduated from Dar al-Ulum College in Cairo at the time, and he worked as a primary school teacher. He was influenced by the ideas of Rashid Rida. Remember Rashid Rida? He was highly respected by all who has come in contact with him. Hassan al-Banna was really widely respected by all the people at that time in Egypt. Hassan al-Banna decided to establish Jama'at al-Ikhwan al-Muslimin, or what we know now as Muslim Brotherhood, in 1928. The main principles of the group is to spread the awareness about Islam among the Muslims in Egypt and even the whole world. He declared that the group considers Islam as a comprehensive way of life. Islam is a comprehensive way of life. It influences economy, politics, almost everything in the life of Muslims should be according to Islam. Actually, for information now, this group in Egypt, after the revolution which takes place in Egypt recently, last January, there was certain parliamentary election in Egypt last 2 weeks and still going. So they won majority of the elections in Egypt. This Jama'at al-Ikhwan Muslim Brotherhood. Before, of course, during all that time, they were not allowed to, to be part in the political stage in Egypt, and there was a lot of problems with them. The government usually arrest a lot of people, put them in the prison. It was a long story for almost 60 years between the government and this group. But recently, during these elections, when the people are free to choose, they have majority of the votes during the last 2 weeks. But still, there are 2 stages of these elections. We have another scholar also who is well known in the Muslim world, by the name of Abu Al-Mawdudi, who was born in 903 and passed away in 1979. Al-Mawdudi was born in the Indian subcontinent, because at that time there was no India or Pakistan, it was the Indian subcontinent. And he learned Arabic and religious studies in the early years of his lifetime. Al-Mawdudi worked as a journalist, and he wrote many books, among them Towards Understanding Islam, which is translated to 30 languages, among them Chinese language and even Arabic language, many languages. This is very famous book, Towards Understanding Islam. Al-Mawdudi established the Islamic group in Pakistan, which is our Indian subcontinent at the time, in 1941. The group called for an Islamic constitution for the new state of Pakistan. He has been arrested many times for calling upon the government to apply the Islamic law. The confrontation between Al-Mawdudi and the government continues as the latter ignore the call for establishing an Islamic state. So Al-Mawdudi wants to have an Islamic state in Pakistan. The government doesn't want to apply the Islamic law. There was some sort of clash and conflict between the Islamic group and the government in Pakistan. But Al-Mawdudi again, is a well-known Islamic figure in the whole Muslim world. There is another group in Indonesia by the name of Muhammadiyah, which is an Islamic organization in Indonesia. The organization was founded in 1912 by Ahmad Dahlan, who was influenced by Muhammad Abdu. I hope you remember Muhammad Abdu, a well-known Muslim figure. So his influence, although he's in Egypt, his idea influenced a person who established a certain group in Indonesia. Muhammadiyah is the one of the largest Islamic organization in Indonesia with 29 million members. Muhammadiyah runs mosques, prayer houses, clinics, public libraries, and universities. We have another group in Egypt by the name of Al-Jama'a Al-Islamiyya. Al-Jama'a Al-Islamiyya or Islamic group in Egypt. Al-Jama'a Al-Islamiyya in Egypt was one of the main militant groups during the 1980s and 1990s. The spiritual leader of the group is Dr. Omar Abdurrahman, who was accused of issuing a fatwa that led to the assassination of the president of Egypt at the time, in 1980, of President Sadat. The leaders of the group declared that they were wrong regarding killing of civilians and holding arms against the government. So this group, actually in the 1990s, they have some sort of military conflict with the Egyptian government. They attack certain police stations, they put certain bombs here and there. They had these kinds in the 1990s. And there were really some sort of a grave confrontation between the Egyptian government and this Islamic group, the Jama'a Al-Islamiyya. But later, in 2000, they start to think again about what they were doing, whether it's right, whether it was wrong. And again, the group, or the leaders of the group, declared that what they were doing in the 1990s was wrong. This is not what Islam, indicated, what Islam said that it should be done. So they issued certain books and certain articles saying that what we have done before was wrong. This is not according to the Islam. We have another group by the name of Jama'at al-Jihad. Jama'at al-Jihad, the Jihad group. Jama'at al-Jihad was established in the 1970s, and one of the main figures of this group is Ayman al-Zawahiri, the head of Al-Qaeda after the assassination of Osama bin Laden. He is now the leader of Al-Qaeda, Ayman al-Zawahiri, after the assassination of Osama bin Laden. There was a military confrontation between the group and the government in the 1990s. But the main group in Egypt now, who are living in Egypt, not like Ayman al-Zawahiri, who is now in Afghanistan, they declared in 2008 that their concepts of jihad was wrong. Again, this group, Jama'at al-Jihad, was launching a certain military attacks against the government or against the civilians and so on. But now in 2008, after certain consideration, after studying, after second thought, you can say, the leaders of the group in Egypt, they declare that what we have done against the government or against the civilians in Egypt was wrong. And now actually, whether Al-Jama'a Al-Islamiyya, the Islamic group, the previous slide, or Jama'at Al-Jihad, they participated in the elections which ran in Egypt recently, in the last 2 weeks. They say that they should be part of this political system as long as now there are freedoms. So both groups, although they have some sort of military conflict, thinking that this is the right concept of jihad against the government at the time, now both of them, they declare that their ideas about jihad before was wrong. Now we have another group which is called Harakat al-Nahda, which is in Tunisia. Harakat al-Nahda in Tunisia. Harakat al-Nahda started in the 1970s in Tunisia under the leadership of Rashid al-Ghanouchi, a certain Muslim figure. The group tried to be involved in the political system in the 1980s. Actually, this group from the beginning, they were a moderate group, they are a peaceful group, they don't like to be in any clash with the government. So they tried to be in the political system at that time in Tunisia, 1980s, but actually the government stopped them and arrested many of them, and this leader, Rashid al-Ghanouchi, escaped from Tunisia at that time. So the government rejected the application of al-Nahda to establish a political party, and prominent leaders fled abroad after they were accused of organizing a military coup in 1990. For your information again, al-Nahda, this man, the leader, who has been escaped out of Tunisia for almost 20 years, now after the revolution in Tunisia, he returned back, and his political party won the majority of parliamentary elections in Tunisia. Nahda, this group, won the majority of the votes in the parliamentary elections. That was in Tunisia, I think in last month, October. That was in October. We have what the Islamic Salvation Front. Islamic Salvation Front was in Algeria. It was established in 1989 under the leadership of Abbas Madani. The group called for the application of the Islamic law in different fields of life in Algeria. And the front actually, at that time, 1990, won majority of seats in the district elections in the 1990s. So at that time, 1990, there was certain elections for the districts. And this group won majority of seats at that time. But at that time, the army cancelled the elections and abolished this Islamic group. And from that time, there was some sort of military conflicts between the Islamic groups and the army. It lasted for almost more than 10 years. It was so bad and so horrible at that time in Algeria. The election was cancelled, and the leaders of the group fled Algeria and still lives abroad. Still lives abroad. Now we have certain ideas about the main Islamic groups and the most influential groups in the Muslim world. We come now to jihad and terrorist attacks. Whether in India, in the Philippines, Indonesia, Thailand, China, Palestine, Saudi Arabia, we heard about certain terrorist attacks. So we like to know whether these attacks related to jihad or what's the meaning of jihad according to Islam. Jihad actually means struggle or strife. Jihad means to struggle or strive in the cause of Allah. To do something that Allah will be pleased of us. Jihad can be done in different ways. It's not right to translate jihad as a holy war only, because the meaning of jihad is not war only. Jihad means to strive or struggle. And one of the jihad is, if you are in the battle, you fight for the cause of Allah. If you have an enemy attacking you, you fight against that enemy. We'll try to look further. For example, we say that jihad is not only war. Kindness to parents can be jihad. Kindness to parents is a type of jihad. To be kind to one's parents is a type of jihad. Jihad is not restricted to fighting in the battlefield, as we say. Doing different good deeds is a kind of jihad. There is a man who came to the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, the Prophet of Islam, and he said, should I join jihad? There was a certain army going to fight the enemies of Islam. Should I join jihad? Should I go with those people? So the Prophet asked him, are your parents still alive? Are your parents still alive? So the man said, yes. So the Prophet said, then strive by serving them. Strive by serving them. Make jihad by serving them. So this is even in Arabic. Make jihad by serving them. So even being kind to one's parents is a type of jihad. An advice to an unjust ruler, to stand against an unjust ruler, is a great action of jihad. The person might lost his life for such a good deed. You have a certain dictator, you have a bad ruler who's unjust to the people, and you stand against him in a certain way and say you're wrong. What you are doing, you're wrong. This is not the right way. So the Prophet Muhammad said, the best jihad is a truthful word in the presence of an unjust ruler. We repeat this again. The best jihad is a truthful word in the presence of an unjust ruler. We see many people who are so hypocrite when they stand before the ruler. They tell the ruler that you are so great, whatever you do is wonderful. Who can lead the country in such a way? So this is not the right thing to do. If a person stand against the ruler and say to this dictator or say to this ruler, you are wrong. What you are doing is wrong. So this is the best type of jihad. At a certain time, when the Muslims lived in Mecca, permission was not given to them to fight against their enemy at that time. So, we try to look to the verse in the Quran which gives permissions to Muslims to fight against their enemy. So Islam focuses on the defense of the weak, the humble and the oppressed, and enjoins jihad for their protection. we look to the verse in the Holy Quran, to those against whom war is made, permission is given to fight. Because they are wrong, and verily Allah is most powerful for their aid. They are those who were expelled from their home in defiance of right, for no cause except they say our Lord is Allah. The Muslims live in Mecca for almost 13 years. They have been persecuted by the non-Muslims. They have been tortured by the non-Muslims at that time. And now they migrated to another place called Medina in Saudi Arabia. So Allah gives the Muslims permission to fight against their enemies. If there is some sort of attack from that enemy and they need to fight to take their own rights from these enemies. So permission was given to Muslims to fight against their enemies after 13 years. We should remember that fighting in itself is disliked. It's not that the Muslims would like to fight against their enemy, or were urged to fight and go and fight without any reason. This is not something which is according to Islam. The Prophet, peace be upon him, said, "O people," he talked to the Muslims, "do not desire a combat with the enemy. Do not look forward that you want to fight with the enemy, but pray to Allah for safety, that there will be no fighting. But when you are face to face with the enemy, be steadfast." So the Muslims are not aiming for fighting, but once they are in the battlefield against the enemy, they will be steadfast. They will not run away from the battlefield. They need to be steadfast and they need to stand against the enemy if there is. Again, Muslims should not launch aggression against other people who didn't do anything wrong to them or who didn't launch any attack against them. Jihad in the battlefield is the last resort and is subject to certain conditions. Jihad must be launched against the enemy who attacks Muslims. We have a certain verse from the Holy Quran: "Fight in the cause of Allah those who fight you, but do not transgress limits. Allah loves not transgressors." So the Muslims will not just launch attacks against the Muslims without any reason, but if there is a certain attack from the non-Muslims, the Muslims will stand against them and will fight back against them. So just to remind you again, we say that jihad is not only war. Jihad has other things like being kind to the parents, or how to say, stand against a dictator or a desperate ruler. And fighting in the battlefield is not just liked, or people just will go to fight against anybody. And plus, if there is some sort of aggression, the Muslims should defend against this aggression, defend themselves against this aggression, and should not transgress limits in their fights against the enemy. Now, if the Muslims are in fighting in the battlefield, and the enemy say, "Let's have peace," no need to go on fighting. So war is not the main aim for Muslims. If the enemy offers peace, the Muslims should respond positively. So the Quran tells us, "But if they incline towards peace, you also incline towards it." If they offer peace, you accept it. And put your trust in Allah. Verily, He is the all-hearer, the all-knower. So if in the battlefield, fighting, if the enemy would like to have peace, so the Muslims should consider this offer, how to say, positive. There are certain divisions of jihad. There is what we call fard kifaya. When a group of Muslims carry on jihad, there is no blame on others. For example, now we are living in Muslim countries, there is a certain enemy attacking the country, so we have an army, the army will stand against this aggression. So it's fine, no need for everybody in that country to go and fight, as long as there is some people who can defend. And there is something called fard ayn. All Muslims in a certain country should participate in the jihad. So if this enemy is so strong, and even the enemy cannot stand, the army cannot stand against this enemy, all Muslims, whether men, women, anybody, can hold the arms. He should participate in fighting against those people who attack the Muslim countries. So every Muslim have a duty to defend his own place against the enemy. We have certain conditions when we do jihad. There are certain conditions when Muslims carry on jihad. The first thing is that the person should have good intention. by participating in this jihad. As the Prophet, peace be upon him, said that the reward of deeds, anything that a Muslim do, depends upon the intentions. Anything the Muslim do depends upon his own intention. And every person will get the reward according to what he has intended. Every Muslim will get his reward from God according to what he has intended. So for example, if there is a certain person who will go for jihad because he would like to show that he's so brave, he's so courageous. Some people before, remember when people fight with swords, and we would like to show, and we would like to show that they are brave, show their bravery, that they are so strong that they can fight. So if this is the intention of a certain person, this is not, he's not doing jihad. So jihad should depend upon the intention, that we have a good intention by participating in this, to defend the Muslim country or the Muslims against an enemy. So this should be the intention. Second thing, jihad should be under a certain Muslim ruler, or the caliph, or the in a Muslim country, or the caliph who rule overall the Muslim world. Muslim scholars agree that Muslims must respond positively to the call to jihad by the caliph, or the ruler of a Muslim country, when there is certain attack. When invaders invade a Muslim country, all Muslims in that country should defend the country without waiting for any permission or any call. If you have already certain army attacking the Muslim country, you do not need to wait. If you can, you should participate by all means in this jihad. If you cannot participate by hand or by fighting, even if you have money, you can donate and so on. Okay, no problem. No, I was about to say ask at the end, but you can ask. No problem. Yeah. If there is something that...
I see the newspaper and the TV is jihad, and it's not follow the real Muslim jihad. This is terrorism.
We still actually we are talking about it. We reach a certain conclusion later. So step by step, we are trying to let you know first what's the meaning of jihad, what's the types of jihad, what Muslims should do, and from that you will understand whether what's going on is jihad or terrorist attacks. And also I say, but maybe you didn't take notes, that there are certain groups in Egypt, like Al-Jama'ah al-Islamiyya, or Jama'at al-Jihad, Jihad group or Islamic group in Egypt. 1990s, they were launching attacks against the government, against even civilians. Sometimes they put a bomb somewhere and the people are being injured, Muslims. But at that time they have certain ideas that this jihad, they try to change the government by doing that. But later on, in 2000, after a second thought, after more study, after more consideration, they came and said, what we were thinking is wrong. This type of jihad, what we were doing is wrong. Both groups, which they are very active actually, at that time, 1990s. Now, the leaders of the group, they say that what we were doing before is wrong. This is not jihad. This is not jihad. Even by themselves, these two groups in Egypt.
Thank you.
Once we are fighting against the enemy, or Muslims fighting against the enemy in the battlefield, there are certain Islamic manners to be followed by the Muslim army who are fighting against the enemy. The Mujahideen, or the people who launch jihad against the enemy, should follow the rules of Islam during fighting. For example, old people, women, children, monks should not be killed. Fighting is against those who carry the weapons to fight the Muslims. Prisoners of war should be dealt with kindly. Mutilation of dead bodies is absolutely forbidden. Mutilation of dead bodies is absolutely forbidden. So, it's not fighting that you go into the battlefield and you fight against the enemy and do everything you like, and kill anybody in that country or kill anybody in that city. No, there are certain manners that should be followed by the Muslim army who fight against the enemy. So, children, women, old people, people who worship in their own monasteries or in old churches or temples or whatever, should not be killed. Nobody should go inside and kill those people. These are not my words. I'm trying actually to quote from the hadith or to quote from the Quran to let you know that these are not my words. I'm quoting, so you know. For example, also, when Muslims, if the Muslims win victory, they should not be proud of themselves. They should not feel that. Actually, Victory is not a reason for feeling proud and doing injustice to others. Establishing justice and achieving prosperity is a priority for the Muslims who won the battle, who won victory against the enemy. They are those. God or Allah is talking about those Muslims when they win victory. They are those who, if we give them power in the land, establish regular prayer, give regular charity, enjoin the right and forbid the wrong, with Allah does rest the end and decision of all affairs. These are the characteristics of the Muslims who won against the enemy. It's not winning against the enemy that you are free, do anything, kill anybody, do all kind of injustice. No. There should be justice. They should be kind. They should establish justice. Now, treatment of the defeated enemy. I'm trying to imagine with you that the Muslims went to the battle, and now they won the war. Look, because I'm trying to quoting Abu Bakr. This is the first caliph or the first ruler of Muslims after Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. He instructed a leader of a Muslim army who was going to fight against the non-believers or non-Muslims. And look to his own advice, his own instructions to the leader of the army. What does he say? He says, when you gain victory over your enemies, do not kill their children, old people, nor women. Do not go even closer to their dead palms. Don't go to their trees and cut the trees that bearing fruits. Nor burn the harvest, nor cut the trees bearing fruits. Do not break the promise once you have made it. If you give them a promise, if you say, if you do this, we'll do that, do not break your promise. And do not break the terms of the treaty once you have entered into it. And you will find some people in the monasteries, like churches, temples, monks, engaged in the worship of God. They are worshipping their own God, whether the Christians, Jews, Buddhists, or whatever. Leave them alone with what they are pleased with. They are worshipping God, they are worshipping their own God. Do not approach them, do not go to them. Do not destroy their monasteries and do not kill them. These are the instructions of the ruler of Muslims at a certain time to a leader of a Muslim army who is going to fight the enemies or non-Muslims. Now, if a Muslims, for example, rule a certain country and you have non-Muslims living in this country, how the Muslim should deal with those non-Muslims living in the Muslim countries. We have a certain tradition of the Prophet peace be upon him that try to clarify for us. The non-Muslims actually living in a Muslim country, in the Islamic term, they call them Zimmi or Ahlul Zimma in general. So the Prophet said, whoever persecutes a Zimmi, a person, a non-Muslim who live in a Muslim country or majority Muslim countries, or usurps his right, or asks him to do work beyond his capacity, or takes something from him unwillingly. For example, there is a non-Muslim who owns a piece of land in a Muslim countries. Can the ruler of a Muslim country go and take that piece of land from him? Cannot do that. So the Prophet said, I shall be a plaintiff against him in the day of judgment. You understand what's a plaintiff? Plaintiff in a court. You have the person who's accused, and you have the judges, and you have a person who try to say that this person has committed a crime. So the Prophet peace be upon him would be the plaintiff, would be the prosecutor to say that you are wrong, what you have done is wrong. So this is a great thing if a Muslim feel that the Prophet peace be upon him will be against him in the day of judgment. So he will not commit such a thing, do such a thing. So the Prophet say, you should not persecute the Zimmi or the person who live among you and is under your own authority. Many people before, especially in the West, or the Western literature, they speak about the Muslims forcing other people to become Muslims when the Muslims go to certain countries. But we have in the Quran certain instructions that the Muslims should not force anybody to become a Muslim. So the Quran said that there will be no compulsion in religion. Truth stands clear from error. Everybody is free, whether he accepts Islam or he doesn't accept Islam. The Muslim should only offer to the people or invite the people or tell the people about what Islam is, but they should not force anybody to become Muslim. Even there's another verse saying, the truth is from your Lord.